Arizona Desert Gems, and today we're going to be talking about making your own ear wires. So first, what kind of wire to use, and I have some samples here. So this is a brand that Joann's has now started to carry. All the wire is in 20 gauge. That's probably the best, most universal size for ear wires that will hold up and fit in most people's ears. One thing I've noticed about the Heidi and Joe, now this one is a little better, that's a half hard wire, but many of them are dead soft, so you're gonna have to do some finishing on these at the end. If you can still find the Daris craft wire in the 20 gauge that comes in a lot of different colors, if you're wanting to use the craft wire, this one is very sturdy, and I really like the hardness on this one. It makes it super easy to work with. The Para wire, ear wire, comes in about probably 40, 50 different colors. I have 20 in stock that I use to make ear wires and head pins. But what I do find with it is, while it's high quality wire, it is inconsistent. Some of them, like this, are nice, stiff, half hard wire, and others are dead soft, and so they require a lot more finishing. I tend to work mostly in copper for the jewelry that I sell online and in craft shows. So I buy my copper from Rio Grande in the 20 gauge, and I buy them in 1 pound spools. And I like to work right off the spool so there's no waste. We're going to talk about 3 ways to make the ear wires, from the most expensive, which you'll need a ruler and a tool, and for all 3, you'll need your flush cutters. So flush cutters have an open trough on one side, on the other side they're flat. Most of the time you're actually going to be cutting with the flat side. You'll need that for all 3 methods. The second method uses a thingamajig, and the last method, the lowest tech, least expensive, uses some graduated round nose, chain nose pliers. See how the tips become smaller? And a pen, your choice of sizes. So our first method uses this tool here. It's called a one-step ear wire maker. You can get them for about $25 online or in most hobby craft stores. This is the back mechanism that is made of metal, but the front mechanism is all, the front faceplates and the pegs are all plastic. So the first thing you're going to do is measure off 2 inches of wire. And this wire does need to be very straight, so make sure you're giving it a nice smoothing before you measure it, because it won't work well in the pliers without that. So here we are going to cut 2 inches off. The first thing you're going to do is open them all the way up. It's going to be a little bit difficult to see because of the black, but there is 1 peg right here and another peg on this side. So you're going to slide your wire on top of this teardrop shape and right between the 2. And then on this side, there is another peg right there. So holding that wire firm, start squeezing the pliers, keeping the wire down next to the plastic faceplate. And there's the ear wire made. If you open up the pliers, you're gonna bring the wire back out and it's gonna be out of shape. So you have to hold it and pluck the ear wire off the pliers with your fingernail. And this is the ear wire that the one-step loopers make. I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like an ear wire to me. I think the tail is way too long and the top is far too sprung open to really stay in your ear well. Another criticism I have is this is a very teardrop loop, and can be too small if you're hanging charms that have the hole just a little bit farther down in the charm, or if you're making enamels. So to me, this is not finished. This is one that I went ahead, I'd used the loopers for, and I went ahead and reshaped this with my pliers so it won't fall out of your ear. See how much space there is. The other thing I would do if this was finished, I would use my flush cutters and cut it right about there. For the second way to make ear wires, you'll need to purchase a thingamajig, or sometimes it's called a wig jig. It comes in a kit with this perforated board on little feet, and then it comes with a variety of pegs. So the first peg that we're going to use is going to be the 4mm peg, and you can see it's graduated here. So you're going to stick this in. Let me take these out so you can see how we're setting it up. Stick it into any hole that you like, and then we're going to take the 10mm peg. We're going to go up diagonally 2 holes, put that one in, and the last peg is the smallest that comes in the set. It's the 3mm, and we're going to come down from the top peg 1, 2, and that's going to help us make the little crook on the ear wire. Some people just start trying to hold and wrap from the edge of the wire, and like I said, I'm working off the spool. I find it much easier if you take your pliers down to your round nose pliers down to about the farthest they can go and make a loop so it comes back and touches like that. And this gives you the opportunity to start the loop. So you want the loop started on the peg with the curl coming in this way. So then we can just very easily take the wire, bend it around the top, whoops, and back through there. So you start here, bend it between those two, around and over that little piece. Then take your flush cutters with the back side, the flat side, put the flat side right next to that lower peg and snip. And then pull your ear wire off the thingamajig. Sometimes they stick, sometimes it's easier than others. Now, you're going to notice this is kind of wonky and bent up. It doesn't lay flat. So it's not a problem. You can just bend it back. You can hammer it. Let's make one more. I'm not in love with how that went. And it might be easier for you to see again. Taking the wire and making one nice big loop. We're going to take the loop so that it faces this way. Stick it right on that first peg, the 4mm peg. The large wire comes up and around and back to the side, taking your cutters right next to the peg and snipping. And there's our ear wires, flattening that out. This one I think got out of shape because as I was working with the wire and trying to hold my hands under the camera, it actually slipped down underneath the peg and got a little bit smaller. So if you're working on a flat surface and you don't have a camera in front of you, it's going to be a lot easier to make 2 pairs of ear wires very, very well. The great thing about the jig is it is so flexible. It has so many different pegs. You can arrange them in different shapes and make curlicues and clovers, all other kinds of ear components. So this is a tool that you'll be able to use for many other things, unlike the one-step loopers, which that's the only thing they do, and in my opinion, they don't do it well. The last way is how I typically make all my ear wires. And it takes a little bit of getting used to, a little bit of practice, but I think you'll find it's pretty easy as well. And it's probably, if you're doing jewelry making, it's probably tools you already have. So your chain nose pliers with the taper, round, and your flush cutters. And then if you want a skinny ear wire, Bic pens are great. Some people use pencils, but I don't use pencils because the wood is soft, and as you're wrapping the wire around the wood, it can dent it, and then you're not going to get a consistent size. Sharpies are great too, but you need to understand the Sharpies are tapered. So depending on where you put your ear wire, you're going to get a different size. So I tend to pick a spot right here between the AP, and that's the spot I use for my ear wires every time, and so now I know they're consistent. So I'm going to take my wire, straighten it a little bit. So you're going to take your wire, put your pliers about halfway in the midpoint of your pliers. You want the wire snug in there so that you can't feel it. And we're going to just start wrapping. So I'm turning, wrapping, readjusting my pliers so that my hand isn't having to turn all the way around, and I have a loop. I'm going to turn this around so that the loop is facing away from me, like so. And because I like a little bit bigger ear wire, I'm going to take the Sharpie right about that AP point. I'm holding my thumb with the loop just barely hanging out. And with my thumb putting on pressure, I'm going to turn it until I come back to the loop. I use my thumbnail, you can use pliers, and I do a little bend. And cutting off, use the back side because it's going to be easier when you finish your ear wire. And I snip. There's one. And I'll show you how to get the second one exactly the same. So we're going to put it in the same place in our pliers. Turning. Okay, we have our loop. Face it away from us. Put it on the exact same spot. Thumb on it with the loop hanging over. Twist forward, bend, and hold it down. Now when I get to this stage, I take my first ear wire, slide it back on, hold them together, line them up, and make the crook in the same place. I hold them, whoop. My wire's a little springy because it's still on the roll and it's not in the usual place that I normally have it. Hold them together, measure, and cut your ear wire. And now you have two exactly same ear wires. This is really my preferred method. The more that you do it, it gets really, really fast, and you can make the ear wires very quickly and uniformly. The other thing about this is it really develops your skills in the use of the different pliers and free-forming, and then you're going to be able to make a lot more different components free-forming without needing other special tools. For this step, if the ear wires are a little bit soft and they're too bendy, then you can take a steel bench block, and I actually got mine at a scrap metal supply, but a steel bench block, and then you want some kind of soft cloth that you're going to put between the metal and your ear wire, and then folding it over so that your metal is completely protected, because we're not trying to put texture in it. This is a rawhide mallet. You can also use a nylon mallet as well. And we're just going to tap it all over. And those taps are going to realign the molecular structure of the metal. And it's called work hardening. And I'm not tapping very hard, but it makes your earring really sturdy and much more difficult to bend. So you'll just want to do both of those same way, just small little taps. I'm not tapping hard at all, but I am tapping multiple times. And that should be good. So now these ear wires that I made with the pliers and the Sharpie pen are ready to finish. Even though you have used your flush cutters, this is still going to be sharp at the end. So one way to do it is to just take a file. This is actually an emery board, and you're going to file around the tips of it until it feels smooth, all the way around to your fingers, a little bit on the top, however you want to do that. If you are using colored wire with the craft wire, as you file, you will take off a little bit, so don't get too vigorous filing up on the side. You can use different grits to make it really nice and smooth, but that feels relatively good. I still don't like the end of it. It feels a little bit sharp to me. You can also buy tools that have a cut burr on the end of them. Now these are just the cut burrs, but you can buy these, you can put them in a pin vise, or you can mount them in a Dremel. Now some you can buy with a wooden handle and the cut burrs already in them, and you just put the end of the ear wire in the burr and twist it. But I like this much better. I get them from Rio Grande again. I love this brand. It's a Swiss brand, and you buy them in packs of 6, and they just mount in your Dremel tool here. So with my Dremel on the lowest setting, there is a little tiny bit of a cup there that your ear wire is going to set directly on. These are small enough that they're not going to cut your hands. So let me turn this on. And I'm going to set this right on there, and I move it around so that it gets the edges. And then I always feel it, and if there's any little barbs that are left, I might go ahead and just go in and take them off real quickly. And there is a nice, smooth ear wire that's going to go into someone's ear or your own ear without snagging or barbing it. And always, happy creating.